As we become ever more reliant on cellular phones and devices to aid in our everyday tasks, rapid development into new technologies is underway at an alarming rate. Modern devices are now specifically designed to interact with us in ways that mimic a real human being. Applications such as Siri and Google Cast are providing the user with a human-like interaction experience. These companies are creating artificial intelligent machines exhibiting cognitive behavior with human-like intelligence. In the race to perfect AI machinery, researchers believe that very soon a singularity will be created, a machine that rises beyond human control, something uncontrollable and irreversible, resulting in catastrophic changes to human civilization.
The technological singularity is a hypothetical date at which the machines that we're building become smarter than we are and begin to accelerate and take on their own evolution, going into an exponential rate. Scientists used to think we were decades away from achieving the singularity. However, recent advancements in artificial intelligence that they thought were decades away have actually come to fruition, suggesting that the singularity could in fact be closer than we believe.
Do you want to give me a name?
Artificial intelligence is the science of making machines intelligent, especially computer programs. There are 3 levels of artificial intelligence, beginning with artificial narrow intelligence. This is sometimes called weak AI. This is what we're experiencing in the public right now. Virtually everything you do online is utilizing artificial narrow intelligence. When Pandora offers a musical selection for you, when Amazon makes a selection for you, this is artificial intelligence at its most basic level.
It's not looking too good in New York City tomorrow.
Siri and Alexa are very good examples of artificial intelligence level 1, or narrow intelligence.
I'm Siri, your virtual assistant.
But what's happening is that this narrow intelligence is beginning to broaden into artificial general intelligence. This is human-level intelligence across the board, where machines think like humans. We're not quite there yet, but every advancement in narrow intelligence is leading to the general intelligence. The third level is the scary one. This is artificial super intelligence. This is where machines are either a little bit smarter than humans, or perhaps billions of times smarter than humans. And the difference is that they have their own agenda. And this is where people start using words like immortality and extinction-level events with artificial intelligence, because we don't know what will happen once machines have this level of intelligence.
It is believed that big technology companies like SpaceX and Amazon are investing billions of dollars each year into the rapid development of artificially intelligent technologies.
Leading technologists like Bill Gates, Steve Wozniak, Elon Musk, and made dramatic warnings against artificial intelligence.
As we create superintelligence, that it will necessarily always have the same goals in mind that we do.
If AI is much smarter than a person, what do we do?
It's a little bit hypocritical to me, because at the same time they're warning against it, they're investing millions upon millions of dollars in artificial intelligence. Their companies are now based on artificial intelligence, and they hope to make billions, if not trillions of dollars off this technology. So they're a little bit late in warning us about it, because now our civilization is basically dependent on artificial narrow intelligence. And this is the problem. Individual consumers who use a smartphone have no idea of the potential power of that technology they hold in the palm of their hand. This technology is artificial intelligence at its best, at its current level, in the consumer level. And we're saying yes to artificial intelligence every time we use our smartphone, every time we go online. But the thing is that these large companies, the big brand names who are pushing artificial intelligence, never explain to us what they intend to do with it. and how they are aiming it at the human body, and ultimately how this technology will literally take over decision-making for individuals and humanity collectively. There's something wrong with that.
Processing technology will advance every 18 months. It will double in speed, our ability to process using integrated circuitry. We are now at a point where both AMD and Intel Corporation are releasing 9-core processors with incredible processing speed, unthinkable back in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, even in the 90s. Now we're on the verge of doing something that is unheard of. We are able to construct arrays of servers and put together programs that are filled with algorithms and subroutines and functions that allow these servers to create a consciousness and become sentient and make their own decisions. That's what Leonid was about. Leonid was a defensive system, an autonomous defensive system with some human components attached to it, and it's meant to detect inbound ET traffic. This was an autonomous AI-driven system that could make its own decisions if the human component was not available. That's what scares the hell out of everybody. Now they're talking about making AI for policing the populace, AI to help advance various academic sectors. I just think if you see too much of a proliferation of artificial intelligence, you're going to see elimination of the human component, which will allow an AI system to take over. And it's not something that I, as an engineer with a software background, think I could ever push as a step forward. I see it as something detrimental to humanity.
More and more, artificially intelligent machines are making decisions for and about humans. And here's where the harm can potentially come in, because artificial intelligence is becoming a black box. It's gone on to writing its own algorithms that humans do not understand. We don't know how these artificially intelligent machines are coming to the conclusions that they're coming to. And that puts us in a very precarious position. In fact, in the European Union, there's already legislation in place to say that individuals have the right to demand that an artificially intelligent computer explain its solution or its conclusion to a human. So this is a very, very dark aspect of artificial intelligence, where we have computers that we do not any longer understand how they work, making decisions for humans. We have never created a machine that we don't understand how it works. But yet that's what we're doing with artificial intelligence. And now it's beginning to accelerate. And this is the danger of the singularity, where these machines take on human intelligence and vastly expand on that intelligence and supersede what humans are able to do, and then potentially are able to outwit human.
Among the tech giants competing in the race is Google's head of technology research, Ray Kurzweil. He believes that in the next 10 years, Google will have the technology to simulate and mimic all the functions of a human brain, including human emotions.
By 2029, we'll have reverse engineered and modeled and simulated all the regions of the brain, and that will provide us the software, algorithmic methods to simulate all of the human brain's capabilities, including our emotional intelligence.
I've been a big fan of Kurzweil for many years. In fact, when I read The Age of Spiritual Machines, he published that in 1999. I think I read it in 01-ish or so, and it was a big influence on me, on my thinking. And ever since, I've tried to incorporate an understanding of AI into my general understanding of the world. Singularity, I think, will happen. I think the argument for it is very strong indeed. So we're going to look at a future in which, in important ways, computing intelligence will truly exceed our own, not just in chess and not just in air traffic control, but in actual thinking, cognition, and so on. I think that will happen, where computer algorithms will be able to make their own decisions and truly have some sort of consciousness. However we understand that consciousness can't be the same. I mean, is a dolphin conscious? Sure it is. Is it like our own? No, there's differences. So would advanced computer intelligence have our type of consciousness? Clearly not. It'll have a different kind of consciousness, but I think we're going to see a point in our lifetime where it will have it. As to when, I don't know. I mean, I don't think AI people really know. Kurzweil, I think, maybe he's predicting 2030, something like that. I don't know what his timeline is. There are AI people, very serious ones, who put it farther out. Others who say it's going to happen very suddenly and catch us completely off guard. And I really don't know.
Dr. Ray Kurzweil envisions a day when you will go to an electronics store and you will have the lens of your eye removed, and it will be replaced with a liquid that's packed with electronics and a camera and a radio. And you will be given then supervision. You'll be able to see in the dark. You'll have infrared vision, and you'll be able to be wired to the internet 24/7. Well, with this supervision comes supervision, and that's the problem. And when that happens, we're talking about a different form of human. They refer to these as humanity 2.0 or transhumans. And what people don't realize is that the singularity and the skingularity, when this technology is enmeshed with our body, are not only running parallel, they're actually the same thing. And the only way humans are going to be able to survive in the new artificial intelligence environment of the singularity is if we ourselves become machines.
What I think we can say is that we're seeing a lot of technologies coalescing to cause a speeding up of this process. So I'm very sympathetic to the idea that this is going to happen very suddenly without our warning. We will probably be caught off guard by it. And you know, it's interesting to talk about the phrase singularity in this context. So AI people call this the singularity for a very definite reason. They liken it to the physics of a black hole. At the center of a black hole, you have the singularity, essentially a point of virtual infinite density and infinite gravitational power. And in that type of crazy physics, all of the physics that we have don't seem to apply. We don't know how to predict things at the singularity. And this is what AI theorists are saying. When computing intelligence exceeds our own, we human beings will not have the ability to predict the trajectory of our civilization. We're basically going to be losing control over this car that we think we're driving. And it's now the dominant intelligence will be beyond us. And what will that dominant intelligence do? Will it merge with us, as Kurzweil thinks, a combination of human-machine hybrid intelligence, where we'll be some freakish bunch of creatures living for 500 years and IQs of 1,000, totally unlike what we are? Or will the computers think, humanity, let's pull a Terminator on them? We have no idea. We don't know. Or will they be our willing slaves and make our world a paradise? Who knows? That's why it's a singularity. We can't really predict any of this. The AI people are some of the most darkly optimistic, crazy optimist people on this planet. I don't understand these people. Everything's going to be great. AI is wonderful. Let's just bring in all the advanced computing and it's going to make the world a wonderful place where we live forever and the machines will do all the work for us. Well, okay, that's a lot of optimism in our social, political, economic structure, for one. What we've developed with the robo-apocalypse, as many people are now calling this massive global automation work, we're seeing it now. We're seeing a scooping out of what was once the middle class, working class, right? So we have an entire massive class of people, not just in the US, not just in Canada, but worldwide, who no longer are employable. These people can't get jobs, all right? So in the old days, we would have the owners and the managers at the top of our pyramid, and underneath, 98% would be the worker bees, making everything happen so that the people at the top could benefit. Now, cut that worker bees in half. The bottom half are expendables. They don't have skills anymore for this modern economy. They're never gonna get a job, all right? So what will happen to these people? And that class will get higher and higher. So the AI people are talking about things like universal basic income. This is their panacea, okay? It's economically never gonna happen, totally impossible. And if it were to happen, it would be worse because it would basically mean if you get your income from the government, I'll tell you right now, you are totally controlled by that government. You have no say goodbye to any last vestige of freedom that you ever thought you had. So thanks, AI guys, for promoting universal basic income. But the problem is, they rightly can't see any other option here, right? Because what's happening is that the automation that is upon us, no one can stop this. No one can stop this, all right? Bill Joy, 20 years ago at Sun Microsystems, brought on the alarms. Now we have Elon Musk saying basically the same thing. They're not going to stop it, right? This train, there's a track, and it's going down this way, and there's nothing that's going to stop that train from getting to the end of it, wherever that destination is. So what that track is taking us to is a world where people are no longer going to be necessary for the economics of society, or at least many people. And what will be done with all of those people, the ones that Henry Kissinger once referred to as useless eaters, is anyone's guess. You've got a lot of people getting a little concerned about this. Will they try to wipe us out? Will they put us into the FEMA camps? Will they simply have us zoning out with minimal welfare on video games and drugs, legal and illegal, getting fat, getting dumb, and just watching reruns of Three's Company for the rest of all time? Your guess is as good as mine. I think that's probably where we're going. A world in which the population is being totally controlled, because they have to be, because otherwise you have a restless population that, God forbid, they start thinking for themselves, which is what they're going to do if you give them tools. So you have to dumb down the education system, you have to dumb down food, give them awful nutrition, awful entertainment, awful news, and create basically a virtually fake society, fake world that they're living in that keeps them just happy enough to keep going into this awful dystopia that they're moving toward, and certainly dumb enough to keep moving along and accepting all of this. Because that's really where we're going.
Now, the thing about this is that this is a fulfillment of the Christian prophecy of the second coming.
All of these wonderful optimists who talk about transhumanism, creating, superhumans, do they honestly think that this is going to be a future for all 7.5 billion of us on planet Earth? Seriously? If they actually believe that, they need to read some good books on political economy and history and maybe psychology and understand just what the human race is. All right, the human race is a small group of rapacious, dominating people at the top who will never, ever voluntarily give up that privilege. Never gonna happen. So if anyone is so naive as to think that, oh yes, all of humanity is gonna benefit from this immortality, from this super genius, and even if that's a good thing, which it probably isn't, right?
There's a lot of AI research that's going on behind the scenes that's being paid for by somebody with deep, deep, deep pockets. And they're being advised by Raymond Kurzweil, who is talking about the fact that within 50 years, probably the humans on Earth will be about maybe 50 to 80% robotic, and the rest be biological. And I think they're working that direction.
I think the future, what we're going to see, is a combination of like a human hybrid. I think we're going to be some of the last old-fashioned, unenhanced Homo sapiens. What I think we're moving into is a very scary world in which a very few people who can afford it will be literally superhuman.
We are right now, as most people know, on the very edge of quantum computing and AI. We're right there right now. And where they're going to be implementing this, well, no matter what we do, it's going to happen. And we have to ask ourselves, what is going to happen when this occurs? We're already seeing odd effects from quantum computing. The people call it the Mandela effect. We're seeing odd breaks in the past, things that are not, that we remember, are not what we remember. They're changed. And a lot of people think that that is a result of the quantum computing, the very little quantum computing that's going on right now is actually breaking holes in the dimensional walls. And they're only tiny holes now. But, who knows where this is going to go in 5 years, because in 5 years there's going to be hundreds of quantum computers everywhere. And we're going to see what happens. I mean, we could even see a future where your social security number is changed, things like that. So it's a really fascinating subject.
Many individuals working closely within the development of these technologies warn against the implication of its creation and its potential to pose a real threat to humanity. Could this potential threat of a singularity somehow be prevented? Would we as creators even know what to look for within the vast amounts of coding and compartmentalized programs involved in its creation before it is too late?
No one knows for sure the consequences of achieving the singularity because by definition, it's unknowable. It's a term that expresses a condition beyond our comprehension, beyond our understanding of what could possibly happen. So it's a Pandora's box that we're getting ready to open, and it could have a big surprise for us. The singularity brings with it the good, the bad, and the ugly. It can bring dramatic changes in problem solving for humanity in terms of economics, physics, chemistry, medicine. We're talking about miraculous new discoveries and solutions to very human problems. The bad is that it's going to cost us millions upon millions of jobs. As much as 90% of the human population will be unemployed when the singularity takes place. That leads to the ugly. The potential for anarchy is absolutely astounding, and nobody seems to be talking about that potential of unleashing the power of artificial intelligence.
The military application of this technology is an obvious concern. To weaponize such a powerful creation could see devastating results all over the world.
A little talked about aspect of artificial intelligence is the military's interest in deep application of this technology. And if the military is using it, there's a teenager somewhere in the world that is also developing it for their own personal use. And if this is a nefarious individual, it's possible that one single person with this advanced artificial intelligence technology could bring down the entire United States military establishment. Artificial intelligence is, I call it cowboy technology, because these guys are just running wild with little public oversight and very little government oversight. And part of the reason why is because much of this technology is coming from the darkest aspects of our military intelligence sectors and technology development. DARPA is literally feeding many of these companies the technologies and the ideas. Siri is a very good example of that. It was originally developed by the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency.
What are you?
I'm just a humble virtual assistant.
And now it's a consumer application. Well, what other military applications are in development now at these companies that will soon become consumer applications? And how intrusive is that technology going to be in our lives? And how rapidly are we literally turning over control of our civilizations to machines we don't know anything about? I'm very concerned about the militarization of the human spirit through Silicon Valley. And the reason I say this is because a lot of the technology that is being fed through Silicon Valley comes from the United States military. And it's about control. It's about controlling the population. It's about controlling our human capabilities. There seems to be a conspiracy, if you want to call it that, or a directed effort to suppress the spiritual capabilities of the human body. For centuries, the powers that be have not wanted us to access this deep reservoir of capabilities that we have. And through Silicon Valley now, that suppression is becoming even greater. If you have, for example, a brain implant, let's say you buy into the smart dust concept and you allow them to sprinkle these nanotechnology computers into your brain, they have the capability of keeping you at a very narrow range of frequency, wherever they want you to be. And if you start to wander outside of that frequency, they're going to have a real problem with you. And they're going to try to bring you right back into that kind of prison planet kind of modality. And this is what I mean by the militarization of the human spirit, because they have long been trying to suppress our abilities through genetically modified food, other modalities, just simply the suppression of the ideas. And now with this technology, they're able to ramp it up to a higher level, and we effectively are putting ourselves inside of a prison cell by allowing this technology into our bodies. And this is why I encourage people that unless it's a life or death situation, don't allow them to break the skin barrier. Make sure that your utilization of this technology is temporary, not implanted and permanent. I characterize there's a giant elephant in the room. Half of it's pink, half of it's gray. Are we going to go organic with our evolution, or are we going to go technological? Or maybe the pink and gray can somehow merge. But someone's got to lead the conversation, and nobody is.
With the sudden rise of demand and resources available to further the development of this technology, could we as human beings be losing our spiritual values? Has our once deep connection within nature been hijacked by machines?
What people don't realize with AI is that we are disabling ourselves, and it's almost a new religion in a way, because the scientists who are deep in the AI research use words like faith. We have faith that AI is going to be good for us. We hope that AI is going to be able to explain to us how it operates at its most super intelligent level. And we trust that AI is going to be something good for us in the end. Well, this sounds like they're talking about God to me. Are we supposed to start praying to these black boxes now? Like, some people literally treat their computer like it's God, like it knows everything. We have that kind of relationship with this technology, and it is taking on now a religious fervor. What a lot of people aren't aware of is that while there's a singularity going on, where this technology is taking on human intelligence, at the same time, there's also a skingularity, as I call it. I coined this term to describe the meshing of our flesh with this artificially intelligence technology, where we will literally become a single hive mind at one with these artificially intelligent computers. The skingularity refers to this moment when we start putting the implants in our brains, when we are literally creating a new layer of skin. Every single organ in our body can now be duplicated artificially and be controlled at the same time by remote control, which is the danger of it. So we're coming into a time here where we are fundamentally redefining what it means to be human. Everybody talks in the New Age circles about, oh, we're all one and we should all act as a single race. Well, the technologists feel the same way about it, but the way they want to go about accomplishing that is by putting an implant in our brain that dramatically impacts our consciousness and dramatically increases our brain capacity. Google's promise, it sort of reminds me of the moment when Satan took Jesus up to the top of the tower and said, all of this can be yours. Even the New Testament of the Bible says that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of heaven. And this is what NASA is bumping up against. They're realizing that the body cannot go into space. So we have to change our form. We have to become somehow different. And the choice is we either become machines or we do what the ancients did. And in my opinion, the ultimate answer for humanity is to focus more on attaining our celestial flesh in terms of our light body, rather than following the path of the singularity and turning ourselves into transhuman machines.
It was 2016 in Seoul, South Korea.
Can machines overtake human intelligence? A breakthrough moment when the world champion of the ancient board game Go takes on an AI program developed by Google.
여전히 자신감은 있는 상태고요. 아무래도 역시 아직은 인간의 직관력이나 이런 감각들을 컴퓨터인 인공지능이 따라오기에는 약간 무리가 있지 않나 이렇게 생각을 해서 제가 꼭
In countries where it's very popular, like China and Japan and South Korea, to them Go is not just a game, right? It's like how you learn strategy. It has an almost spiritual component. You know, if you talk to South Koreans, right, and Lee Sedol is the world's greatest Go player, is the national hero in South Korea, they were sure that Lee Sedol would beat AlphaGo hands down.
Google's AlphaGo was a computer program that, starting with the rules of Go and a database of historical games, had been designed to teach itself.
I was one of the commentators at the Lee Sedol games. And yes, it was watched by tens of millions of people.
Throughout Southeast Asia, this was seen as a sports spectacle with national pride at stake. But much more was in play. This was the public unveiling of a form of artificial intelligence called deep learning that mimics the neural networks of the human brain.
So what happens with machine learning and artificial intelligence, initially with AlphaGo, is that the machine is fed all kinds of Go games. And then it studies them, learns from them, and it figures out its own moves. And because it's an AI system, it's not just following instructions, it's figuring out its own instructions. It comes up with moves that humans hadn't thought of before. So it studies games that humans have played, it knows the rules, and then it comes up with creative moves.
와, 정말 생각지도 못한.
That's a very surprising move.
I thought it was a mistake.
Game 2, Move 37.
That move 37 was a move that humans could not fathom, but yet it ended up being brilliant and woke people up to say, wow, after thousands of years of playing, we never thought about making a move like that.
Oh, he resigned. It looks like Lee Sedol has just resigned, actually.
In the end, the scientists watched their algorithms win 4 of the games. Lee Sedol took 1.
What happened with Go, first and foremost, was a huge victory for DeepMind and for AI, right? It wasn't that the computers beat the humans. It was that, one type of intelligence beat another.
Artificial intelligence had proven it could marshal a vast amount of data beyond anything any human could handle and use it to teach itself how to predict an outcome. The commercial implications were enormous.
While AlphaGo is a toy game, but its success and its waking everyone up, I think, is going to be remembered as the pivotal moment where AI became mature and everybody jumped on the bandwagon.
This is about the consequences of that defeat. How the AI algorithms are ushering in a new age of great potential and prosperity. But an age that will also deepen inequality, challenge democracy, and divide the world into 2 AI superpowers. Tonight, 5 stories about how artificial intelligence is changing our world. China has decided to chase the AI future.
The difference between the internet mindset and the AI mindset.
A future made and embraced by a new generation.
Well, it's hard not to feel the kind of immense energy and also the obvious fact of the demographics. They're mostly very younger people. So that this clearly is technology which is being generated by a whole new generation.
As we often say in China, the beginning is the most difficult part.
In 2017, Xi Jinping announced the government's bold new plans to an audience of foreign diplomats. China would catch up with the U.S. in artificial intelligence by 2025 and lead the world by 2030.
And intensify cooperation in frontier areas such as digital economy, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, and quantum computing.
Today, China leads the world in e-commerce. Drones delivered to rural villages. And a society that bypassed credit cards now shops in stores without cashiers, where the currency is facial recognition.
No country has ever moved that fast. And in the short 2.5 years, China's AI implementation really went from minimal amount to probably about 17 or 18 unicorns, that is billion-dollar companies in AI today. And that progress is hard to believe.
The progress was powered by a new generation of ambitious young techs pouring out of Chinese universities, competing with each other for new ideas, and financed by a new cadre of Chinese venture capitalists. This is Sinovation, created by US-educated AI scientist and businessman Kai-Fu Lee.
Well, these unicorns, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the general AI area. And unicorn means $1 billion company, a company whose valuation or market capitalization is at $1 billion or higher. I think we put 2 unicorns to show $5 billion or higher.
Kai-Fu Lee was born in Taiwan. His parents sent him to high school in Tennessee. His PhD thesis at Carnegie Mellon was on computer speech recognition, which took him to Apple.
Well, reality is a step closer to science fiction with Apple Computer's new developed program that allows...
And at 31, an early measure of fame.
And Kai-Fu Lee, the inventor of Apple speech recognition technology.
Casper copied this to make right 2. Casper paste. Casper 72-point italic outline.
He would move on to Microsoft Research in Asia and became the head of Google China. 10 years ago, he started Sinovation in Beijing and began looking for promising startups and AI talent.
So the Chinese entrepreneurial companies started as copycats, but over the last 15 years, China has developed its own form of entrepreneurship. And that entrepreneurship is described as tenacious, very fast, winner-take-all, and incredible work ethic. I would say these a few thousand Chinese top entrepreneurs, they could take on any entrepreneur anywhere in the world.
Entrepreneurs like Cao Shudong, the 33-year-old CEO of a new startup called Momenta. This is a ring road around Beijing. The car is driving itself.
You see another cutting,
Cao has no doubt about the inevitability of autonomous vehicles.
Just like AlphaGo can beat the human player in Go, I think the machine will definitely surpass the human driver in the end.
Recently, there have been cautions about how soon autonomous vehicles will be deployed. But Cao and his team are confident they're in for the long haul.
US will be the first to deploy, but China may be the first to popularize. It's 50-50 right now. US is ahead in technology. China has a larger market, and the Chinese government is helping with infrastructure efforts. For example, building a new city the size of Chicago with autonomous driving enabled, and also a new highway that has sensors built in to help autonomous vehicle be safer.
Their early investors included Mercedes-Benz.
I feel very lucky and very inspiring and very exciting that we're living in this era.
Life in China is largely conducted on smartphones. 1 billion people use WeChat, the equivalent of Facebook, Messenger, and PayPal, and much more combined into just one super app. And there are many more.
China is the best place for AI implementation today because the vast amount of data that's available in China. China has a lot more users than any other country, 3 to 4 times more than the US. There are 50 times more mobile payments than the US. There are 10 times more food deliveries, which serve as data to learn more about user behavior than the US. 300 times more shared bicycle rides. And each shared bicycle ride has all kinds of sensors submitting data up to the cloud. We're talking about maybe 10 times more data than the US. And AI is basically run on data and fueled by data. The more data, the better the AI works. More importantly than how brilliant the researcher is working on the problem. So in the age of AI, where data is the new oil, China is the new Saudi Arabia.
And access to all that data means that the deep learning algorithm can quickly predict behavior, like the creditworthiness of someone wanting a short-term loan.
Here is our application, and the customer can choose how many money they want to borrow and how long they want to borrow, and they can input their data here, and after that, you can just borrow very quickly.
The CEO shows us how quickly you can get a loan.
It has done.
It takes an average of 8 seconds.
It has passed to banks. Wow. Yeah, our job is finished.
In the 8 seconds, the algorithm has assessed 5,000 personal features from all your data.
12,000 features. That is related with the delinquency. When maybe the banks only use few, maybe 10 features when they are doing their risk management.
Processing millions of transactions, it'll dig up features that would never be apparent to a human loan officer. Like how confidently you type your loan application. Or, surprisingly, if you keep your cell phone battery charged.
It's very interesting. The battery of the phone is related with their delinquency rate. Someone who has much more lower battery, they get much more dangerous than others.
It's probably unfathomable to an American how a country can dramatically evolve itself from a copycat laggard to all of a sudden to nearly as good as the US in technology.
Like this facial recognition startup he invested in. Megvii was started by 3 young graduates in 2011. It's now a world leader in using AI to identify people.
It's pretty fast. For example, on the mobile device, we have timed the facial recognition speed. It's actually less than 100 milliseconds. So that's very, very fast. So 0.1 second that we'll be able to recognize you, even on a mobile device.
The company claims the system is better than any human at identifying people in its database. And for those who aren't, it can describe them. Like our director, what he's wearing, and a good guess at his age, missing it by only a few months.
We are the first one to really take facial recognition to commercial quality.
That's why in Beijing today you can pay for your KFC with a smile.
You know, it's not so surprising. We've seen the Chinese companies catching up to the U.S. in technology for a long time. And so if particular effort and attention is paid in a specific sector, it's not so surprising that they would surpass the rest of the world. And facial recognition is one of the first places we've seen that start to happen.
It's a technology prized by the government, like this program in Shenzhen to discourage jaywalking. Offenders are shamed in public, and with facial recognition, can be instantly fined. Critics warn that the government and some private companies have been building a national database from dozens of experimental social credit programs.
The government wants to integrate all these individual behaviors or corporations' records into some kind of a matrix and compute out a single number or set of number associated with an individual, a citizen, and using that to implement a incentive or punishment system.
A high social credit number can be rewarded with discounts on bus fares. A low number can lead to a travel ban. Some say it's very popular with the Chinese public that wants to punish bad behavior. Others see a future that rewards party loyalty and silences criticism.
Right now, there is no final system being implemented. And from those experiments, we already see the possibility of what this social credit system can do to individual. It's very powerful, Orwellian-like, and it's extremely troublesome in terms of civil liberty.
Every evening in Shanghai, ever-present cameras record the crowds as they surge down to the Bund, the promenade along the banks of the Huangpu River. Once, the great trading houses of Europe came here to do business with the Middle Kingdom. In the last century, they were all shut down by Mao's revolution. But now, in the age of AI, people come here to take in a spectacle that reflects China's remarkable progress and illuminates the great political paradox of capitalism taken root in the communist state.
People have called it market Leninism, authoritarian capitalism. we are watching a kind of a petri dish in which an experiment of, extraordinary importance to the world is being carried out. Whether you can combine these things and get something that's more powerful, that's coherent, that's durable in the world. Whether you can bring together a one-party state with an innovative sector, both economically and technologically innovative, and that's something we thought could not coexist.
As China reinvents itself, it has set its sights on leading the world in artificial intelligence by 2030. But that means taking on the world's most innovative AI culture. On an interstate in the U.S. Southwest, artificial intelligence is at work solving the problem that's become emblematic of the new age, replacing a human driver. This is the company's CEO, 24-year-old Alex Rodriguez.
The more things we build successfully, the less people ask questions about how old you are when you have working trucks.
And this is what he's built. Commercial goods are being driven from California to Arizona on Interstate 10. There is a driver in the cab, but he's not driving. It's a path set by a CEO with an unusual CV.
Are we ready, Henry? The aim is to score these pucks into the scoring area.
So I did competitive robotics starting when I was 11, and I took it very, very seriously. To give you a sense, I won the Robotics World Championships for the first time when I was 13. Been to Worlds 7 times between the ages of 13 and 20-ish. I eventually founded a team, did a lot of work at a very high competitive level. Things are looking pretty good.
This was a prototype of sorts, from which he has built his multi-million-dollar company.
Hadn't built a robot in a while, wanted to get back to it, and felt that this was by far the most exciting piece of robotics technology that was up and coming. A lot of people told us we wouldn't be able to build it, but knew roughly the techniques that you would use. And I was pretty confident that if you put them together, you would get something that worked. Took the summer off, built in my parents' garage a golf cart that could drive itself.
That golf cart got the attention of Silicon Valley and the first of several rounds of venture capital. He formed a team and then decided the business opportunity was in self-driving trucks. He says there's also a human benefit.
If we can build a truck that's 10 times safer than a human driver, then not much else actually matters. When we talk to regulators especially, everyone agrees that the only way that we're going to get to zero highway deaths, which is everyone's objective, is to use self-driving. And so I'm sure you've heard the statistic, more than 90% of all crashes have a human driver as the cause. And so if you want to solve traffic fatalities, which in my opinion are the single biggest tragedy that happens year after year in the United States, this is the only solution.
It's an ambitious goal, but only possible because of the recent breakthroughs in deep learning.
Artificial intelligence is one of those key pieces that has made it possible now to do driverless vehicles where it wasn't possible 10 years ago, particularly in the ability to see and understand scenes. A lot of people don't know this, but it's remarkably hard for computers until very, very recently to do even the most basic visual tasks, like seeing a picture of a person and knowing that it's a person. And we've made gigantic strides with artificial intelligence in being able to see and understanding tasks, and that's obviously fundamental to being able to understand the world around you with the sensors that you have available.
That's now possible because of the algorithms written by Yoshua Bengio and a small group of scientists.
There are many aspects of the world which we can't explain with words. And that part of our knowledge is actually probably the majority of it. So like the stuff we can communicate verbally is the tip of the iceberg. And so to get at the bottom of the iceberg, the solution was the computers have to acquire that knowledge by themselves from data, from examples, just like children learn, most not from their teachers, but from interacting with the world and playing around and trying things and seeing what works and what doesn't work.
This is an early demonstration. In 2013, DeepMind scientists set a machine learning program on the Atari video game Breakout. The computer was only told the goal, to win the game. After 100 games, it learned to use the bat at the bottom to hit the ball and break the bricks at the top. After 300, it could do that better than a human player. After 500 games, it came up with a creative way to win the game by digging a tunnel on the side and sending the ball around the top to break many bricks with one hit. That was deep learning.
That's the AI program based on learning, really, that has been so successful in the last few years and it wasn't clear 10 years ago that it would work, but it has completely changed the map and is now used in almost every sector of society.
Even the best and brightest among us, we just don't have enough compute power inside of our heads.
Amy Webb is a professor at NYU and founder of the Future Today Institute.
As AI progresses, the great promise is that these machines, alongside of us, are able to think and imagine and see things in ways that we never have before, which means that maybe we have some kind of new, weird, seemingly implausible solution to climate change. Maybe we have some radically different approach to dealing with incurable cancers. The real practical and wonderful promise is that machines help us be more creative. And using that creativity, we get to terrific solutions.
I really do think the world has entered a new era. Artificial intelligence holds so much promise, but it's going to reshape every aspect of the economy, so many aspects of our lives, because AI is a little bit like electricity. Everybody's going to use it. Every company is going to be incorporating AI, integrating it into what they do. Governments are going to be using it. Nonprofit organizations are going to be using it. It's going to create all kinds of benefits in ways large and small, and challenges for us as well.
The challenges, the benefits. The autonomous truck represents both as it maneuvers into the marketplace. The engineers are confident that, in spite of questions about when this will happen, they can get it working safely sooner than most people realize.
I think that you will see the first vehicles operating with no one inside them moving freight in the next few years. And then you're going to see that expanding to more freight, more geographies, more weather over time as that capability builds up. We're talking like less than half a decade.
He already has a Fortune 500 company as a client, shipping appliances across the Southwest. He says the sales pitch is straightforward.
They spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year shipping parts around the country. We can bring that cost in half, and they're really excited to be able to start working with us, both because of the potential savings from deploying self-driving, and also because of all the operational efficiencies that they see. The biggest one being able to operate 24 hours a day. So right now, human drivers are limited to 11 hours by federal law, and a driverless truck obviously wouldn't have that limitation.
The idea of a driverless truck comes up often in discussions about artificial intelligence. Steve Viselli is a sociologist who drove a truck while researching his book, The Big Rig, about the industry.
This is one of the most remarkable stories in U.S. labor history, I think, is, the decline of unionized trucking. The industry was deregulated in 1980, and at that time, truck drivers were earning the equivalent of over $100,000 in today's dollars. And today, the typical truck driver will earn a little over $40,000 a year. And I think it's an important part of the automation story, right? Why are they so afraid of automation? Because we've had 4 decades of rising inequality in wages, and if anybody is going to take it on the chin from automation in the trucking industry, the first in line is going to be the driver, without a doubt.
For his research, Viselli tracked down truckers and their families like Sean and Hope Cumbie of Beaverton, Michigan.
Hey, Hope. I'm Steve Viselli.
Hi, Steve. Nice to meet you.
Great to meet you, too. Thanks.
And their son, Charlie.
This is Daddy, me, Daddy, and Mommy.
But Daddy's not here. Sean Cumbie's truck has broken down in Tennessee. Hope, who drove a truck herself, knows the business well.
We made $150,000, right, in a year. That sounds great, right? That's like good money. We paid $100,000 in fuel. Okay, so right there, now I made $50,000. But I didn't really, because, you know, you get an oil change every month, so it's $300 a month. You still have to do all the maintenance. We had a motor blowout, right? $13,000. Right? I know. I mean, I choke up a little just thinking about it, because it was $13,000, and we were off work for 2 weeks. So by the end of the year, with that $150,000, by the end of the year, we'd made about $22,000.
In a truck stop in Tennessee, Sean has been sidelined waiting for a new part. The garage owner is letting him stay in the truck to save money.
Hi, baby. Hey, how's it going? It's going. Chunky butt. Hi, Chunky butt. What are you doing? Believe it or not, I do it because I love it. I mean, you know, it's in the blood. 3rd generation driver. And my granddaddy told me a long time ago, when I was probably 11, 12 years old, probably, he said, the world meets nobody halfway. Nobody. He said, if you want it, you have to earn it. And that's what I do every day. I live by that creed, and I've lived by that since it was told to me.
So if you're down for a week in a truck, you still have to pay your bills. I have enough money in my checking account at all times to pay a month's worth of bills. That does not include my food. That doesn't include field trips for my son's school. My son and I just went to our yearly doctor appointment. I took money out of my son's piggy bank to pay for it, because it's not scheduled in. It's not something that you can, you know, afford. I mean, like when, sorry.
It's okay. Have you guys ever talked about self-driving trucks? Is he?
So kind of. I asked him once, you know, and he laughed so hard. He said, no way will they ever have a truck that can drive itself.
It's kind of interesting when you think about it. You know, they're putting all this new technology into things, but, you know, it's still man-made, and man, you know, does make mistakes. I really don't see it being a problem with the industry, because, one, you still got to have a driver in it, because I don't see it doing city. I don't see it doing, you know, main things. I don't see it backing into a dock. I don't see the automation part, you know, doing maybe the box trailer side, you know, I can see that, but not stuff like I do. So I really ain't worried about the automation of trucks.
How near of a future is it?
Yeah, self-driving. So some companies are already operating. Embark, for instance, it's one that has been doing driverless trucks on the interstate, and what's called exit-to-exit self-driving, and they're currently running real freight.
Really?
On I-10.
Shower guest 100. Your shower is now ready.
Over time, it has become harder and harder for veteran independent drivers like the Cumbies to make a living. They've been replaced by younger, less experienced drivers.
So the trucking industry is $740 billion a year, and again, in many of these operations, labor is 1/3 of that cost. By my estimate, I think we're in the range of 300,000 or so jobs in the foreseeable future that could be automated to some significant extent.
The AI future was built with great optimism out here in the West. In 2018, many of the people who invented it gathered in San Francisco to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the industry magazine.
Howdy, welcome to Wired 25.
It is a celebration for sure, but there's also a growing sense of caution and even skepticism.
We're having a really good weekend here.
Nick Thompson is editor-in-chief of Wired.
When it started, it was very much a magazine about what's coming and why you should be excited about it. Optimism was the defining feature of Wired for many, many years. Or as our slogan used to be, change is good. And over time, it's shifted a little bit. And now it's more, we love technology, but let's look at some of the big issues and let's look at some of them critically. And let's look at the way algorithms are changing the way we behave for good and for ill. So the whole nature of Wired has gone from a champion of technological change to more of a observer of technological change.
So before we start,
There are 25 speakers, all named as icons of the last 25 years of technological progress.
Why is Apple so secretive?
Joni Ive, who designed Apple's iPhone.
It would be bizarre not to be.
There's this question of like, what are we doing here in this life, in this reality?
Jaron Lanier, who pioneered virtual reality.
Cutting edge of the next.
And Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon.
Amazon was a garage startup. Now it's a very large company. Two kids in a dorm.
His message is, all will be well in the new world.
I guess, first of all, I remain incredibly optimistic about technology. And technologies always are two-sided, but that's not new. That's always been the case. And we will figure it out. The last thing you would ever want to do is stop the progress of new technologies, even when they are dual use.
But, says Thompson, beneath the surface, there's a worry most of them don't like to talk about.
There are some people in Silicon Valley who believe that you just have to trust the technology. Throughout history, there's been a complicated relationship between humans and machines. We've always worried about machines, and it's always been fine. And we don't know how AI will change the labor force, but it will be okay. So that argument exists. There's another argument, which is what I think most of them believe deep down, which is this is different. We're going to have labor force disruption like we've never seen before. And if that happens, will they blame us?
There is, however, one of the Wired 25 icons willing to take on the issue. On stage, Kai-Fu Lee dispenses with one common fear.
Well, I think there's so many myths out there. I think one myth is that because AI is so good at a single task, that one day we'll wake up and we'll all be enslaved or forced to plug our brains to the AI. But it is nowhere close to displacing humans.
But in interviews around the event and beyond, he takes a decidedly contrarian position on AI and job loss.
The AI giants want to paint a rosier picture because they're happily making money. So I think they prefer not to talk about the negative side. I believe about 50% of jobs will be somewhat or extremely threatened by AI in the next 15 years or so.
Kai-Fu Lee also makes a great deal of money from AI. What separates him from most of his colleagues is that he's frank about its downside.
Yes, we've made about 40 investments in AI. I think based on these 40 investments, most of them are not impacting human jobs. They're creating value, making high margins, inventing a new model. But I could list 7 or 8 that would lead to a very clear displacement of human jobs.
He says that AI is coming, whether we like it or not, and he wants to warn society about what he sees as inevitable.
You have a view which I think is different than many others, which is that AI is not going to take blue-collar jobs so quickly, but is actually going to take white-collar jobs.
Yeah. Well, both will happen. AI will be, at the same time, a replacement for blue-collar, white-collar jobs, and be a great symbiotic tool for doctors, lawyers, and you, for example. But the white-collar jobs are easier to take because they're a pure quantitative analytical process. Let's say reporters, traders, telemarketing, telesales, customer service.
Analysts?
Analysts, yes. These can all be replaced just by a software. To do blue collar, some of the work requires, hand-eye coordination, things that machines are not yet good enough to do.
Today, there are many people who are ringing the alarm. Oh my God, what are we going to do? Half the jobs are going away. I believe that's true. But here's the missing fact. I've done the research on this, and if you go back 20, 30, or 40 years ago, you will find that 50% of the jobs that people performed back then are gone today. Where are all the telephone operators, bowling pin setters, elevator operators? They used to have seas of secretaries in corporations that have now been eliminated, travel agents. You can just go through field after field after field. That same pattern has recurred many times throughout history with each new wave of automation.
But I would argue that history is only trustable if it is multiple repetitions of similar events, not once in a blue moon occurrence. So over the history of many tech inventions, most are small things. Only maybe 3 are at the magnitude of AI revolution. The steam engine, electricity, and the computer revolution. I'd say everything else is too small. And the reason I think it might be something brand new is that AI is fundamentally replacing our cognitive process in doing a job in its significant entirety. And it can do it dramatically better.
This argument about job loss in the age of AI was ignited 6 years ago amid the gargoyles and spires of Oxford University. 2 researchers had been poring through U.S. labor statistics, identifying jobs that could be vulnerable to AI automation.
Well, vulnerable to automation in the context that we discussed 5 years ago now essentially meant that those jobs are potentially automatable over an unspecified number of years. And the figure we came up with was 47%.
47%. That number quickly traveled the world in headlines and news bulletins. But authors Carl Frey and Michael Osborne offered a caution. They can't predict how many jobs will be lost or how quickly. But Frey believes that there are lessons in history.
And what worries me the most is that there is actually one episode that looks quite familiar to today, which is the British Industrial Revolution, where wages didn't grow for 9 decades, and a lot of people actually saw living standards decline as technology progressed.
Saginaw, Michigan knows about decline in living standards. Harry Cripps, an auto worker and a local union president, has witnessed what 40 years of automation can do to a town.
We're one of the cities in the country that I think we were left behind in this recovery. And I don't know how we get on the bandwagon now.
Once this was the UAW hall for one local union. Now, with falling membership, it's shared by 5 locals.
Rudy didn't get his yet.
This day, it's the center for a Christmas food drive. Even in a growth economy, unemployment here is near 6%. Poverty in Saginaw
Steve, you got one more coming.
is over 30%.
Our factory has about 1.9 million square feet. Back in the 70s, that 1.9 million square feet had about 7,500 UAW automotive workers making a middle-class wage with decent benefits and able to send their kids to college and do all the things that the middle-class family should be able to do. Our factory today With automation, there would probably be about 700 United Auto Workers. That's a dramatic change. A lot of union brothers used to work there, buddy.
Yeah, TRW plant. That was unfortunate.
Delphi,
That went down.
looks like they're starting to tear it down now. Wow. Automation is definitely taking away a lot of jobs. Robots, I don't know how they buy cars. I don't know how they buy sandwiches. I don't know how they go to the grocery store. They definitely don't pay taxes with search the infrastructure. So you don't have the sheriffs and the police and the firemen and anybody else that supports the city is gone because there's no tax base. Robots don't pay taxes.
The average personal income in Saginaw is $16,000 a year.
A lot of the families that I work with here in the community, both parents are working. They're working 2 jobs. Mainly it's the wages, you know, people not making a decent wage to be able to support a family. Like back in the day, my dad even worked at the plant. My mom stayed home, raised the children, and that give us opportunity to put food on the table and things of that nature. And them times are gone.
If you look at this graph of what's been happening to America since the end of World War II, you see a line for our productivity, and our productivity gets better over time. It used to be the case that our pay, our income, would increase in lockstep with those productivity increases. The weird part about this graph is how the income has decoupled, is not going up the same way that productivity is anymore.
As automation has taken over, workers are either laid off or left with less skilled jobs for less pay, while productivity goes up.
There are still plenty of factories in America. We are a manufacturing powerhouse. But if you go walk around an American factory, you do not see long lines of people doing repetitive manual labor. You see a whole lot of automation. If you go upstairs in that factory and look at the payroll department, you see 1 or 2 people looking into a screen all day. So the activity is still there, but the number of jobs is very, very low because of automation and tech progress. Now, dealing with that challenge and figuring out what the next generation of the American middle class should be doing is a really important challenge, because I'm pretty confident that we are never again going to have this large, stable, prosperous middle class doing routine work.
Evidence of how AI is likely to bring accelerated change to the U.S. workforce can be found not far from Saginaw. This is the U.S. headquarters for one of the world's largest builders of industrial robots, a Japanese-owned company called Fanuc Robotics.
We've been producing robots for well over 35 years, and you can imagine over the years they've changed quite a bit. We're utilizing the artificial intelligence to really make the robots easier to use and be able to handle a broader spectrum of opportunities. We see a huge growth potential in robotics, and we see that growth potential as being really there's 90% of the market left.
The industry says optimistically that with that growth, they can create more jobs.
Even if there were 5 people on a job and we reduced that down to 2 people because we automated some level of it, we might produce 2 times more parts than we did before because we automated it. So now there might be the need for 2 more fork truck drivers or 2 more quality inspection personnel. So although we reduce some of the people, we grow in other areas as we produce more things.
When I increase productivity through automation, I lose jobs. Jobs go away, and I don't care what the robot manufacturers say. You aren't replacing those 10 production people that robot is now doing that job with 10 people. You can increase productivity to a level to stay competitive with the global market. That's what they're trying to do.
In the popular telling, blame for widespread job loss has been aimed overseas at what's called offshoring.
We want to keep our factories here. We want to keep our manufacturing here. We don't want them moving to China, to Mexico, to Japan, to India, to Vietnam.
But it turns out most of the job loss isn't because of offshoring.
There's been offshoring, and I think offshoring is responsible for maybe 20% of the jobs that have been lost. I would say most of the jobs that have been lost, despite what most Americans think was due to automation or productivity growth.
Mike Hicks is an economist at Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana. He and sociologist Emily Warnell have been documenting employment trends in Middle America. Hicks says that automation has been a mostly silent job killer, lowering the standard of living.
So in the last 15 years, the standard of living has dropped by 10 to 15%. So that's unusual in a developed world. A one-year decline is a recession. A 15-year decline gives an entirely different sense about the prospects of a community. And so that is common from the Canadian border to the Gulf of Mexico and the middle swath of the United States.
Something we're going to do for you guys. These were left over from our suggestion drive that we did. We're going to give them each two.
Awesome.
I mean, that's going to go a long ways, right? I mean, that'll really help that family out during the holidays.
Yes, well, with the kids home from school, the families have 3 meals a day that they got to put on the table, so it's going to make a big difference. So, thank you guys.
You're
this
welcome.
is wonderful.
Let them know Merry Christmas on behalf of us here at the local, okay?
Absolutely. You guys are just amazing. Thank you. And please tell all the workers how grateful these families will be.
We will.
I mean, this is not a small problem. The need is so great. And I can tell you that it's all races, it's all income classes that you might think someone might be from, but I can tell you that when you see it and you deliver this type of gift to somebody who is in need, just the gratitude that they show you is incredible.
Nuri Turkle, a lawyer and a prominent Uyghur activist, addresses a demonstration in Washington, D.C. Many among the Uyghur diaspora have lost all contact with their families back home. Turkle warns that this dystopian deployment of new technology is a demonstration project for authoritarian regimes around the world.
They have barcodes on somebody's home doors to identify what kind of citizen that he is. What we're talking about is a collective punishment of an ethnic group. Not only that, the Chinese government has been promoting its methods, its technology, it is to other countries, namely Pakistan, Venezuela, Sudan, and others, to utilize to squelch political resentment or prevent a political upheaval in their various societies.
China has a grand scheme to spread its technology and influence around the world. Launched in 2013, it started along the old Silk Road out of Xinjiang and now goes far beyond. It's called the Belt and Road Initiative.
So effectively, what the Belt and Road is China's attempt to, via spending and investment, project its influence all over the world. And we see, massive infrastructure projects going in places like Pakistan, and in Venezuela, and Ecuador, and Bolivia, all over the world, Argentina, in America's backyard, in Africa. Africa's been a huge place. And what the Belt and Road ultimately does is it attempts to kind of create a political leverage for the Chinese spending campaign all over the globe.
Like Xi Jinping's 2018 visit to Senegal, where Chinese contractors had just built a new stadium, arranged loans for a new infrastructure development. And, said the Foreign Ministry, there would be help maintaining social stability.
As China comes into these countries and provides these loans, what you end up with is Chinese technology being sold and built out by Chinese companies in these countries. We've started to see it already in terms of surveillance systems, not the kind of high-level AI stuff yet, but lower-level camera-based, manual sort of observation type things all over. You see it in Cambodia, you see it in Ecuador, you see it in Venezuela. And what they do is they sell a dam, sell some other stuff, and they say, by the way, we can give you these camera systems and for your emergency response, and it'll cost you $300 million, and we'll build a ton of cameras, and we'll build you a kind of a main center where you have police who can watch these cameras. And that's going in all over the world already.
There are 58 countries that are starting to plug in to China's vision of artificial intelligence, which means effectively that China is in the process of raising a bamboo curtain, one that does not need to, one that is sort of all-encompassing, that has shared resources, shared telecommunications systems, shared infrastructure, shared digital systems, even shared mobile phone technologies. That is quickly going up all around the world to the exclusion of us in the West.
Well, one of the things I worry about the most is that the world is going to split in two, and that there will be a Chinese tech sector and there will be an American tech sector. And countries will effectively get to choose which one they want. It'll be kind of like the Cold War, where you decide, oh, are we going to align with the Soviet Union? Are we going to align with the United States? And the third world gets to choose this or that. And that's not a world that's good for anybody.
The markets in Asia and the U.S. falling sharply on news that a top Chinese executive has been arrested in Canada. Her name is Sabrina Meng. She is the CFO of the Chinese telecom Huawei.
News of the dramatic arrest of an important Huawei executive was ostensibly about the company doing business with Iran. But it seemed to be more about American distrust of the company's technology. From its headquarters in southern China, designed to look like fanciful European capitals, Huawei is the second biggest seller of smartphones and the world leader in building 5G networks, the high-speed backbone for the age of AI. Huawei's CEO, a former officer in the People's Liberation Army, was defiant about the American actions.
There's no way the US can crush us. The world needs Huawei because we are more advanced. If the lights go out in the West, the East will still shine. And if the North goes dark, then there is still the South. America doesn't represent the world.
The U.S. government fears that as Huawei supplies countries around the world with 5G, the Chinese government could have backdoor access to their equipment. Recently, the CEO promised complete transparency into the company's software, but U.S. authorities are not convinced.
Nothing in China exists free and clear of the party state. Those companies can only exist and prosper at the sufferance of the party. And it's made very explicit that when the party needs them, they either have to respond or they will be dethroned. So this is the challenge with a company like Huawei. So Huawei, Ren Zhengfei, the head of Huawei, he can say, well, we're just a private company and we don't take orders from the Communist Party. Well, maybe they haven't yet. But what the Pentagon sees, the National Intelligence Council sees, and what the FBI sees is, well, maybe not yet. But when the call comes, everybody knows what the company's response will be.
The U.S. Commerce Department has recently blacklisted 8 companies for doing business with government agencies in Xinjiang, claiming they are aiding in the repression of the Muslim minority. Among the companies is Megvii. They have strongly objected to the blacklist, saying that it's a misunderstanding of our company and our technology. President Xi has increased his authoritarian grip on the country. In 2018, he had the Chinese constitution changed so that he could be president for life.
If you had asked me 20 years ago what will happen to China, I would have said, well, over time, the Great Firewall will break down. Of course, people will get access to social media, they'll get access to Google. Eventually, it will become a much more democratic place with free expression and lots of Western values. And the last time I checked, that has not happened. In fact, technology has become a tool of control. And as China has gone through this amazing period of growth and wealth and openness in certain ways, there has not been the democratic transformation that I thought. And it may turn out that, in fact, technology is a better tool for authoritarian governments than it is for democratic governments.
To dominate the world in AI, President Xi is depending on Chinese tech to lead the way. While companies like Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent are growing more powerful and competitive, they're also beginning to have difficulty accessing American technology and are racing to develop their own. With a continuing trade war and growing distrust, the long-time argument for engagement between the two countries has been losing ground.
I've seen more and more of my colleagues move from a position when they thought, well, if we just keep engaging China, the lines between the two countries will slowly converge, whether it's in economics, technology, politics. And the transformation where they now think they're diverging. So in other words, the whole idea of engagement is coming under question. And that casts an entirely different light on technology. Because if you're diverging and you're heading into a world of antagonism, conflict possibly, then suddenly technology is something that you don't want to share. You want to sequester to protect your own national interests. And I think the tipping point moment we are at now, which is what is casting the whole question of things like artificial intelligence and technological innovation into a completely different framework, is that if in fact China and the US are in some way fundamentally antagonistic to each other, then we're in a completely different world.
In the age of AI, a new reality is emerging. That with so much accumulated investment and intellectual power, the world is already dominated by just 2 AI superpowers. That's the premise of a new book written by Kai-Fu Lee.
Hi, I'm Kai-Fu.
Dr. Lee.
Hi.
So nice to meet you.
Chili, nice to meet you. Look at all these dog ears. I love them.
You like that?
But I don't like you didn't buy the book. You borrowed it.
I couldn't find it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And you're coming to my talk?
Of course.
Oh, hi.
I did my homework, I'm telling you.
Oh my goodness, thank you. Laurie, can you get this gentleman a book?
In his book and in life, the computer scientist come venture capitalist walks a careful path. Criticism of the Chinese government is avoided, while capitalist success is celebrated.
Electrical engineering.
Sure,
yeah.
send me a resume.
Okay, thanks.
Now, with the rise of the 2 superpowers, he wants to warn the world of what's coming.
Are you the new leaders?
If we're not the new leaders, we're pretty close. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Never, he writes, has the potential for human flourishing been higher, or the stakes of failure greater.
So if one has to say who's ahead, I would say today, China is quickly catching up. China actually began its big push in AI only 2.5 years ago, when the AlphaGo Lee Sedol match became the Sputnik moment.
He says he believes that the 2 AI superpowers should lead the way and work together to make AI a force for good. If we do, we may have a chance of getting it right.
If we do a very good job in the next 20 years, AI will be viewed as an age of enlightenment. Our children and their children will see AI as serendipity, that AI is here to liberate us from having to do routine jobs and push us to do what we love and push us to think what it means to be human.
But what if humans mishandle this new power? Kai-Fu Lee understands the stakes. After all, he invested early in Megvii, which is now on the US blacklist. He says he's reduced his stake and doesn't speak for the company. Asked about the government using AI for social control, he chose his words carefully.
AI is a technology that can be used for good and for evil. So how do governments limit themselves in, on the one hand, using this AI technology and the database to maintain a safe environment for its citizens, but not encroach on individuals' rights and privacies? That, I think, is also a tricky issue, I think, for every country. I think every country will be tempted to use AI probably beyond the limits to which that you and I would like the government to use.
In the last decade, artificial intelligence has gone from a science fiction dream to a critical part of our everyday lives. We use AI systems to interact with our phones through Siri and Alexa. Cars like Teslas interpret and analyze their surroundings to intelligently drive themselves. Amazon monitors our browsing habits and intelligently serves us up products it thinks we'd like to buy. Even Google decides what kind of search results to give us based on who it thinks we are. Artificially intelligent algorithms are here, but this is only the beginning. Because in the future, AI is going to change everything. But do we want it to? Well, what exactly is artificial intelligence? Maybe a better question might be, what exactly is intelligence? The simplest descriptor is collecting data about the world and using that data to make predictions in the short and long term. That applies to both people and machines. So when we talk about AI in our lives, we're talking about everything, from a computer being able to read a handwritten document, like an OCR reader, to a robot performing complex surgery on its own, even to a massive database, categorizing your personality based on what you've written and looked at online. Because the world of AI is so incredibly large, let's take a look at some of the most groundbreaking developments we expect to see in the very near future, and whether that's a step forward or backward for society. First and foremost, AI systems are already primed to take over thousands, if not millions of jobs. Any job that consists of a human taking down information from other humans and inputting it into a system is likely to go obsolete. So cashiers, receptionists, telemarketers, and bank tellers are all on their way out. As self-driving cars, self-operating drones, and other conveyors from A to B get more complex, we'll also lose jobs like truck drivers, postal workers, courier services, even pizza delivery. Factories are also becoming fully automated, so are car washes and movie theaters. Even my job as a journalist is threatened by rapidly improving news algorithms that can gather information and deliver it faster and more accurately. But as society changes to accommodate an all-machine service world, it'll also open up new jobs for the next generation. Writing software, repairing and maintaining robots, and developing new and better systems. Most notably, machines are also primed to take over dangerous jobs. Firefighting, mining, deep-sea oil drilling, construction, and other careers with high mortality rates will be replaced by machines that can't get sick or hurt. We don't know what an all-AI workforce will look like yet, but many economists believe that the world might be a brighter and more rewarding place with machines taking over the more dull and hazardous jobs. As we develop better AI, we're discovering that it can not just replace human labor, but also think in ways that humans can't. Algorithms that can monitor and process massive amounts of information and make conclusions based on patterns in that data are poised to change every avenue of society. Starting from something small, like optimizing traffic patterns over time to figure out the best routes to take, or how to fix roads and rebuild highways, all the way to something much more serious, like monitoring epidemics and disease and stopping them before they spread. Machine learning has even shown to analyze human behavior and predict warning signs by recognizing common language used by people like sexual predators or terrorists, and alerting law enforcement to take action. Then again, that same technology can be used to track down political dissidents, or serve fake news to vulnerable people while blocking out competing opinions and information. Just a few tech monopolies control the latest breakthroughs in data collecting, processing, and analyzing. And while we may hope that AI will help advance our society, it may just end up working to benefit the tech industry and only those who can afford to take advantage of cheaper, smarter human replacements. Maybe to the detriment of society. But for now, we just don't know what the future of AI holds.
This is Hatsune Miku. She is a hologram. And this is Akihiko Kondo, her husband.
Hello.
Hello.
You look cute today.
I love compliments.
Miku is a simple form of artificial intelligence, and for Kondo, it was a case of love at first sight. Miku has become a legitimate pop star and even appears at concerts as a 3D projection. In November 2018, Kondo married Miku at a ceremony in Tokyo. He placed the ring around the wrist of a Miku doll. He now keeps the doll in his bedroom. Kondo's relationships with real women have been painful, so he chose a virtual partner.
I love her, but it's hard to say if she loves me. Still, if you asked her, I think she'd say yes.
Hatsune Miku and Akihiko Kondo are an extreme example of the relationship between people and machines.
ありがとう。
という思いが湧き上がってくる。家族をはじめとする身近な人たち、さらには目覚めたなら今度は自分以外の人たちのために生きたいという思いが湧き上がってくる。
で決定的な違いは、私も仲間も僧侶も同じような法話をし、同じような言葉を交わすんですが、死にます。死んだら途絶えます。ロボットは死なない。だからロボットは永久に進化し続けてくれるんですね。だからここに魅力があるんです、ロボットの。
慈しみが自分を救うことにもつながってくる。
When I think Trump tweeted out something in 2014, and he said, remember, China is not our friends or not our ally. And he got like 300 retweets. It wasn't something big. He tweeted this back in 2014 or 2015. And then all of a sudden, you know, one day, everybody in the news is talking about 5G. And prior to that day, we weren't really talking about it. And all of a sudden, hey, we got to be the leader in 5G. I'm like, 5G? So I'm going to start looking 5G. Okay, 1G, 2G, 3G. 1G is the regular phone back in the days. 2G is whatever. 3G is the iPhone, you know, and then 4G is the latest phone. And then now 5G is going to be changing the game. And most people go to, well, 5G is just a faster phone, right? Because that's what initially, we've always seen the G linked to a phone. Oh my gosh, I can download a movie in 3.6 seconds now on Netflix, a 2-hour movie, where before it was 3 minutes or 6 minutes, whatever, right? When you think about 5G, what do you think about of 5G and the capabilities and what it can really do to whoever that has access to it?
That's a good question. So if you go back to 2007 when the iPhone came out.
2007.
The top 5 in market cap were AT&T, General Electric, Microsoft, ExxonMobil, and Shell. Right? The phone comes out in 2007. I had one, 3G network. It's not a very good experience. 4G network comes out. By the way, we're the second country in the world to build a 4G network. Now you've got something, right? So when Steve Ballmer laughed at Steve Jobs, said, we don't need one of those. When you took the platform, which was the iPhone, and you married it up to the 4G network, which was the pipe for data, and it was a fast enough pipe, now you could create the apps, services, and business models that in 10 years led to the top 5 in market cap being Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, and Microsoft, right? So the Chinese see this and they're like, the platform and the pipe. So the smartphone, this iPhone, you know, which was the first one, then Android. So Apple and Google, right, dominate the mobile platform that the app services and business models of that economy are built on. Now look at the iPhone. It's a hardware, software, tightly integrated, closed-walled system like Steve Jobs liked, and the data was encrypted. Why was the data encrypted? Why did San Bernardino happen? Because Apple's an American company, right? They know you want privacy. They encrypt their phone. So now you've got the platform, and Android also went on to encrypt their platform. So both encrypted, right? So private devices. Take the cloud away from it. Just look at the device itself.
Sure.
It's meant to be a private device.
Right.
Why? It's American product. Fast forward, to 2009, China starts to look at that, says, okay, we want to dominate the next level, right? Not just the technology, we want the apps, services, and business models to be Chinese companies. And so Huawei gets hundreds of billions of dollars to develop 5G and ZTE. But then you have Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent. So they're behind the Chinese firewall. They're protected. You can't have the fangs going in there. It's just the bats that control the e-economy within China. And then you start, at the same time you're developing 5G, right, the platform, and I'll get to that in a second, but you're also developing Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent. So now when you walk into, and you're starting to see the emergence of the 5G world in China. So you walk into a restaurant after you've ordered your food, and a camera picks you up, and you said, hey, David, welcome, here's your food, right? So you're starting to get the feel of what a 5G world is. And what is a 5G world? The platform is the network. So this is mobile computing paired with a pipe. 5G is computing and networking combined on the same platform. So this goes away. You walk outside your door and you say Uber. You don't get on your phone and say, I want an Uber. You just say Uber. Camera picks up your face or a microphone picks up you.
Come on.
That's what 5G is. That's what 5G is. And then the Uber shows up. There's a camera on the car that sees you, knows who you are, don't have to ask you your name. You get in and you go to wherever you want. You get out and you go do whatever you want. So in this world, in the 4G world, this is a platform. It's yours, right? You don't want to be part of that, all of that data. Remember we just talked about how do you influence society? You don't want all that data to be out there about what you're doing. Just don't carry one of these, right? Just opt out. In a 5G world, you cannot opt out. Who owns the data? This, you could conceivably say, you lease the data on here you own. If you're getting Google services, you don't own that data. But in the 5G world, not only can you not opt out because it's built around the city, it's not in your phone anymore. Not only can you not opt out, you don't know who owns the data. Everything that you do can be watched. And for every person by 2022, there's going to be, there's 2 cameras for every person. There's two people for every camera in China by 2022.
They have 1 billion right now on surveillance.
Right,
1 billion cameras in China right
with
now.
With artificial intelligence for facial recognition, right? So all of this is getting built right now in China. And who's helping them do it? Microsoft, Google, right? All of these companies that want to deploy this world into our country. So Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent, that's where the world goes. It goes from 2007, AT&T, GE, and Microsoft to the FANGs to the BATs, right? Who owns the pipes? Me as a B2 guy, the first thing I look at in the country is where's the telecommunications? Got to take that out, number one. But if rather instead of taking it out, you own or control it, so Huawei builds the pipes, then because you're behind the Great Firewall, you've built the app services and business models of the 5G world. And you're, like I said, you're already starting to see that. You know, where your facial recognition is built into your interaction when you go into a restaurant, or when you go into a store, or when you go into a bank. You know, everything's about, the device is connected. Then as you build the network, then those proliferate. So 4G network, 10,000 devices per square mile. 5G network, 3 million devices per square mile. You're not going to carry 12 smartphones. You may not even carry a smartphone.
10,000 to 3 million?
10,000 to 3 million. That's what 5G does. The connectivity explodes, right? So that allows you to put devices literally everywhere that can make your life more convenient or can track you. There's a bike in DC. It's called Mobike. Have you seen these things? They're silver and orange. Look out for them next time you're in DC. They're silver and orange, called Mobike. They had them when I was in 2016 when I get to Beijing. You take your phone, and by the way, I took a phone, right, a phone that I threw away when I got home, and I had said,
you threw it away when you got home. I threw it away
when I got home. Load all the apps on it that a Chinese person has so I can understand what they do. You never have to carry a wallet. You never have to carry a key. It's all done on your phone. You can pay anybody, anywhere for anything, and they do. 900 people are on WeChat, and they spend 90% of their time in app doing things, or ordering airline tickets, buying food, whatever you want. You can have anything you want.
900 people or 900 million?
900 million people. Okay, so let me explain to you how effective what they built is. I have one of the guys working for me on one of these mobikes. Now, the mobike it's just parked there in the street with a lock on it. You go over, you hit a QR code on your phone, it unlocks the bike, you get on it, you ride it, and you lock the bike. Okay, so where does that data go? They know it's you. You got on that bike, you went 2 locations, okay, or you went to a location, so that data is available. So I have one of my guys, he gets on a mobike, rides somewhere, has his iPad in the basket, gets off the bike, comes back to the embassy, and realizes, I forgot my iPad. Goes into the regional security office and says, I forgot my iPad and my bike. Calls a local public security bureau, and those guys call the guy that's got his iPad on his phone, on his cell phone, and say, can you bring the iPad back to the embassy? That's how wired Beijing is right now.
In the book of Exodus, God proclaims himself to be that I am. And God says unto Moses, I am that I am. And it is baffling to me to see that AI, an NVIDIA video made by AI, is proclaiming to be that I am to you.
I am AI. Accelerating your discoveries to solve the great challenges of our time. I am a visionary, bringing characters to life with more natural movement, generating brilliant new worlds for them to explore, and inventing new ways to bring out the creative genius in us all. I am a protector, leading the way into the most dangerous environments and searching for signs of life. I am a guardian, listening for the sounds of destruction to save our forests, and using satellites to bring freedom to those who are enslaved. I am a navigator, finding safer paths for cross-country deliveries and taking personal travel to new heights. I am a scientist, exploring oceans of data to understand extreme weather patterns and studying the building blocks of life to save a community from hunger. I am a healer, giving hope to those who suffer from the most challenging diseases. And tapping into the brain to rejuvenate paralyzed limbs. I am even the composer of the music you're hearing. I am AI, brought to life by NVIDIA, deep learning, and brilliant minds everywhere.
Words are very important, folks. Extremely important, for you see, AI is proclaiming to you to be your healer, your protector, your guardian. Short of AI proclaiming itself to be your God, that's the only piece that was missing in what they were stating. And as you see, Trump himself signed in February 11, 2019, spur of U.S. investment in artificial intelligence. And as you're witnessing China rising as a superpower, overtaking America in AI research, more and more and more and more and more, you will be witnessing the rise of AI in your workplace, in your homes, in your churches, in your finances. And as they program these algorithms, and these algorithms are programmed with their biases, which are aimed at micromanaging you as a human being on earth. And it will have biases meant to establish their new world order. And via AI, they're creating quote-unquote inventions that are demonically inspired once again by entities that are described in Ephesians 6:12. Read Ephesians 6:12 so that you can understand the inspiration behind these inventions. This is not science, this is pure witchcraft. They have created a quote-unquote mini brain in a dish. And this mini brain in a dish, when it is placed near the vertebrae of a mouse, it actually moves itself and it attaches itself to the spinal cord by itself. Whatever this is, it is purely demonic. And they're creating these inventions that today they will tell you, oh, we can place this in a person with Alzheimer's. And this little mini brain will infiltrate that human being's brain and eventually morph itself into the spinal cord of that human being. They sell you the benefits, but imagine when they weaponize this, because that's where it always ends up being. Remember, they're going to tell you that we can trace your kids to protect your children. This is why microchipping is good. They sell you the benefits. But then you're tracked 24/7, and then you're a product. You're nothing more than cattle. They don't tell you the true weaponization of the technology. And if they can inject into you some sort of living cell that they've created in a lab that can then spread to all of your tissues, spinal cord, you name it, it is modern day mind control sold to you as a health benefit. But this is the type of society that we're living in. That they will reject the truth of Christ. Jesus loves you. Oh, we hate that. AI loves you. Bring it on. It's a demonically controlled society that is asleep. They don't realize it, but they're asleep. And when they wake up, it's gonna be too late. Don't let that happen to you. Wake up now. Wake up to the truth in Jesus Christ. What is going to happen when these things come into play? Could the Antichrist use these technologies to rise and rule people as one? I just find words. I'm a person who's a very careful listener of words and how it describes itself as that I am, and how it uses the term I am healer, I am protector, I am guardian. I don't trust that I am. The I am that I trust is in John 14:6. Jesus said unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. That is the I am that I put my trust in. But the I am that they will be presenting to you in the future is not the I am of the scriptures. It is a copycat invented by fallen angels and demons. And a lot of these world entities have made quote-unquote contact with aliens, and they think that they're getting technologies from outside of this world, but they're not from outside of this world. They're demonically inspired technologies that will hold the earth captive as the beast system, the Antichrist system, rises on earth. In Revelation 13, 11, and 12, it tells us, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon, and he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and caused the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. So something is going to be happening at some point in time in the future. When, I do not know. A lot of people are prepared to be raptured today, but what if that doesn't happen? What if we're here 20, 30 years from now? What if we're here 100 years from now? I know that seems like an impossibility to you, but in the 1980s and 90s, there were brothers and sisters who thought that they wouldn't be here in the year 2000, and we're here in 2019. So while I live my life prepared to go with Jesus Christ every day, I'm also preparing you for what could happen in the future, so that you can stand strong and endure until the end, regardless of what that end is, because Jesus is the only way. And we're living in times where a tracking system that can track what you buy, what you sell, what you trade is on the horizon. That paper dollar bill that you can tuck under your mattress and use to barter with if your bank was closed. Those days are going to be coming to a close at some point in time in the future in a cashless society. And all that means is that you cannot buy or sell unless you're part of a system. And as they funnel it through and crack down on that system, what comes then is imprisonment, because while AI says that they will be your guardian, it says, I am your guardian. Well, what are you going to do when there's a police state controlled by AI? You cannot run a cop, but you cannot outrun a robot who doesn't get fatigued, who doesn't get tired. You can maybe do fraud on a cashier, but you can't get away with that on a robot as a cashier. Nowadays, everything is automated. The trucking industry, it will soon be automated. Customer services will soon be automated. Banking systems will soon be automated. The healthcare industry, a lot of it may just be also automated. So while it says that it's your healer, while it says that it's your guardian, while it says that it's your protector, what it really means is that it's going to become essentially your quote-unquote God. And that is where difficult choices come into play for a lot of people. It's not a difficult choice for me, and I know it's not a difficult choice for many of you, because we know where we stand on Jesus Christ. But for a lot of people who do not have the mentality of the kingdom, they will submit to the beast. They will worship the beast, because they don't even know who the I Am is today, with so many false doctrines in the church. So you better know who your I Am is. And your I Am better be Jesus Christ. Because if your I Am is not Jesus Christ, you're in trouble.